You're listening to the Things About Nature podcast. Coming to you from a city that never sleeps is me, your host, Rockshana. I invite you to join me in truly honest, passionate, and fun talks that motivate, invigorate, and maybe inspire. Even though we're no longer in the mile high, the sky is still the limit. Everything and anything goes. So let's start talking about things of that nature. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Things About Nature podcast. I'm your host, Rockshana, and today's guest is Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. Hello.
Hello, Miss Rockshana. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm excellent. No complaints.
That's good. What does the Y in your name stand for?
It stands for Yvette. And I want to share a little story since you asked me about that.
Yes.
I always include my middle initial because when I was in college, there was another student. I'm a lot older than most people think I am. And we didn't have student IDs back in college. So we had someone named Monica Jackson. Her grades are always messed up. And I had to go in and try to get my grades fixed. So what I did was made sure that they add the Y in there. So I'm got a little PTSD when you don't use my Y.
I can understand that. That would be crazy, especially if your grades weren't as good as yours and you were getting grades and then. Yes. When I was younger, I used to always want to put the M. So my middle name is Mary. And I always wanted to put the M until my mom was like, I know you like your middle name, but you have to understand your first name is long. The M gets cut off or the last name gets cut off. So you got to either go by Mary or just go by Rockshana. Yes. And so since then I was like, all right, that makes sense.
Right, correct.
It's long, but yours fits. It fits on a business card. Mine is the whole thing. It is the whole business card.
That's funny.
And so what part of the world are you in?
I am in Southern California, in the Inland Empire. Yes.
Nice. How long have you been there?
Well, I'm a native Californian. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I've been in the Inland Empire probably well over 20 some years. So California is home for me.
Okay. What empire did you call it?
It's the Inland Empire. So it's about an hour east of Los Angeles.
Okay. I have no idea. You hear of the big places. I now live in Vegas. I've been here for a year. And because of, the world I live in with dance and modeling and acting and such, I found myself going to California and, learning a little bit something every time I go. Okay. Quick 7-hour drive. I say quick very slightly. But it's a drive.
Yes.
Now, Doctor of?
My doctorate is in educational leadership with a concentration in higher education.
Oh, and what made you want to go that route?
Well, when I was in high school, I always wanted to be a math teacher. Not that I'm great in math. I loved my math teacher. And I wanted to go into math. And he told me not to go into math. And that was in the early 80s. He said, go into computer science because teachers don't make money. You want to go make money. I said, okay. So I went into computer science and I was the first person in my family to go to college. And the advice that he gave me was never change your major. He says, I don't care if you fail a class, you don't change your major. Whatever you go in, he said, promise me, do not change your major. And I said, why? He said, because first of all, most people don't know what they want to do when they get out of college anyway, or going in. He said, your goal is to get in and get out. And you want to do that as quickly as possible. And you are going to be the one that finish. Whereas your friends, they're going to take 5, 6, 7 years trying to get a bachelor's degree. And by that time, you've gotten your master's and everything else. So made sense. I did fail a class. He said, when you fail a class, take that class immediately in the next term. That way you still have that information fresh in your memory and you're not going to fail the class twice. Sure enough, I did fail I think it was artificial intelligence. And I got an F in there. And the next time had taken it, I got a B. So after that, I was in information technology for about 15 years, went through a slew of layoffs. In my book, I talk about that, 5 layoffs in 1 year, and so at that point, I felt like I wanted to reinvent myself. I went back to school, got my master's degree. That allowed me to start teaching. And I didn't, someone said, hey, why don't you come and teach at my college? I'm like, I don't know anything about it. So you qualify for it. So I did. And after that, I really liked education. Obviously, I'm still in there. And so I just enjoyed learning. And one of the things is when I go through things in life that are difficult, I need an outlet. And my outlet is school. So I went back and got my doctorate degree. And in the midst of, I think, was it a layoff or a divorce or something? And people say, how can you do that? Well, that's how you rechannel your energy into something more positive. And so I could be a lifetime student. And so that's how I got into education.
Wow. Lifetime student. Ooh. I like the idea of it, going in, furthering education, getting a doctorate, but then my attention span in school, and I'm like, man, those classes, I don't think I could do it anymore.
Yes.
But like you said, you have to actually enjoy it.
Correct.
Use the energy and to move in something else and kept you busy.
Correct. And kept you in a positive headspace.
Right. You had an end goal. You knew what you were going to do.
Yes.
Okay. A lifetime student, man. Man, I know it's a common thing. A lot of people enjoy school. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I just rather be hopping around somewhere and just moving.
You know what? I'm not going to say that I enjoy it, so to speak. I just think that is such a positive way of doing something. There's an outcome. There's something to finish at the end. There's a goal to reach. You can see your accomplishment and achievement. And so if I could just be a student and write textbooks or books or curriculum, that's ideal for me, because someone is using that. You're using your knowledge and transferring that knowledge to someone else, and maybe explaining something to someone in a way that they may not get that information, because many students, they complain about their professors, and you don't have professors that look like them, that talk like them, that understand. And so when you can incorporate your background into educating people who look like you and don't look like you, it's very rewarding and powerful.
No one's ever said it that way. That's a new way of looking at it.
So that's why I say I'm a lifetime learner. I love learning.
Okay. And now you have a book. You have several books, actually.
I do. My most recent book is Wounds of Wisdom. And again, like I said, I write. I'm a writer just by nature. I journal. When things aren't going well, I need an outlet. And the way that I outlet is to write, whether it's just, if it's an issue that I'm dealing with, write it down, because when Dr. Monica it's time to go to sleep, she needs to sleep. She's not taking those problems to bed like some people and tossing and turning. I have no problem sleeping. And that's what I encourage people to do. When you have issues in life, just write it down. Write it down and toss it, and then go to bed. That way you release it out of your mind. And so when I wrote Wounds of Wisdom, it was because during the pandemic, I lost all of my contracts, my major 6-figure contract. And it kind of threw me for a loop to a certain degree, in terms of it made me, am I in the right field again, looking to do something else. And so I felt like literally 2 days after that particular loss, I felt like God was telling me to write. And so for 8 hours or 8 to 10 hours for the next 7 days, I just wrote. I sit in front of my computer, just writing, just pouring out, not really looking at anything except for my journals to say, okay, did that happen before this or that? And I really didn't know what the purpose of this was. It was never the intent to write the book. I never would have written the book. And so when I finished after the seventh day, first of all, who writes a book in 7 days? That's first and foremost. So for me, that has to be God downloading it to me. That's just my position. And so after I finished, I'm like, wow, what is this? So I actually sent it to 4 people to read. It was really raw. It was not really structured, so to speak, but I sent it to 2 people who knew me and 2 people who did not. And the feedback was so powerful. It was just amazing. And, one person said it's absolutely riveting, a well-written book about very difficult subjects. And Monica captures a means of sharing very painful experiences. It is empowering. And at times I was so afraid for her. She said, I saw a transformation from fearful to fearless. Women do not share enough truth. This book shares total transparency. And I was like, wow, how did she get all of that from this? And so it went on and on. And the feedback was just, wow, I can't believe this. We never knew, this. I've known you all your life. You've never shown that you were going through these things. And I was like, wow, they're authentic and relatable. And then people started sharing. And so I wrote the book, and I didn't readily actually release it. And then a pastor friend of mine just called me and said, hey, Doc, this is not a prophetic word. I know you're struggling with some issues with the church and all of that, but you need to release this book. And I'm like, but I'm talking about your church too. You sure? And so the book was done, the book was edited and everything, but I just would not send it out to be published. And when I received that call from this particular pastor, I went ahead and I published the book. And the power, the feedback, when you get the most recent feedback that I've received was a woman who said she read this book and it stopped her from committing suicide. I realized the power of that book at that time. I realized my assignment in life, because a lot of times we are so silenced. One thing about me, I am in this season of life, I am committed to unsilencing the silenced. And a lot of times we walk around with a mask, feeling like, pretending like everything's okay. Mm-hmm. We've been hurt to our core. We can't share anything. We definitely can't talk about it. We can't speak against our family members. We can't speak about what's going on in the church. We can't speak about what's going on in the workplace, with our friends. People say we are too sensitive or being combative or troublemakers, kicked out of the church, all these things. And so what I realized is I'm not alone. I wasn't alone. Although when I was going through the wounds, I felt very much alone. And it was nobody but me and God, because Dr. Monica doesn't go through these issues, or she doesn't have these problems, but why? Mm-hmm. Why do we have this image that we have to be perfect? Perfection is not attainable. So we set these standards that we can't even attain. We believe things that we have no proof of, that we just totally accept. And there's a difference between faith, fallacy, and foolishness. And there's a fine line between all of that.
Right. We get them mixed up with being the same exact thing, but they're not.
Correct. Absolutely. And we'll fight for what we believe, but we have no justification, rhyme, or reason other than mama said believe that, pastor said believe that, but it doesn't make sense. Right. Some things just don't make sense. And you're not encouraged to say it doesn't make sense. When you say it's not making sense, they feel like it's a personal attack, and it's not. And I have a chapter in the book called, there's 7 wounds, but one of the wounds is church wounds. And I don't question God. I am asking God questions. Big difference. It's not a disbelief. And I think that when you question or ask questions that people are uncomfortable with, instead of saying, I don't know, they feel like they have to be all knowing, as if they are a God that you have to submit to them.
Mhm. Yep. Which then gets you a little bit more riled and confused
Correct.
because you just want the honest, I don't know. I have
Correct.
no idea.
Correct. Correct. Right.
So is
And
the book, is it your journey, your experience?
my book is my personal journey through 7 wounds: friends wounds, workplace wounds, church wounds, family wounds, marriage and divorce wounds, business wounds, and children wounds. And so there's something in that book for everybody. And we all can relate, all. And it was my journey, and it became a healing journey for others. But I realized my strength, that I did not that I had lacked confidence or anything, but this allowed me to move forward, because I felt like not speaking it up about certain wounds, that I was hindering myself from moving forward. I still had this pain that I didn't understand. But guess what? I have this pain. There's nothing I can do about that pain or that painful situation, but I can do something about the pain and how I allow it to hinder me or hold me back. And that's what I had to deal with. And that's what I hope people will, as they read the book, to address that pain and understand they are not alone. They're not alone. And as you start talking about situations, you would say to yourself, now, why didn't I have the nerve enough to say this earlier? I could have saved myself a whole lot of headaches.
Yeah.
A lot of headaches. And then sometimes other people don't want to listen to wisdom. And we have to be careful of who we receive from, because just because they're older than us, just because they have a title, just because they've been in church all their life, doesn't mean that's where wisdom is coming from. So we have to be very discerning of that.
I agree on that. It's like, when someone has a title or it becomes something, it's blind faith, so to say.
Yes. Yes.
Putting a label on something or someone changes the whole dynamic.
Correct.
So for you to say that makes sense. That is
correct.
Now, when you were very hesitant on actually publishing the book, what kept you from publishing it?
Embarrassment, first and foremost. Concerned about what others would feel. Concerned about how it would make other people look. Talking about family, whether we're talking about churches, whether we're talking about pastors. The one thing I do not mention any names, any particular scenery. However, if you were a part of this journey and you read the book, you know I'm talking about you.
As much as you may not admit it, you're being talked about.
And it's so funny, as people are reading this book, some people who know me and have been in certain circles, they say, hey, Doc, can I ask you a question? I said, you can ask a question, but make sure you're ready for the answer. And if it's something I'm not comfortable with answering, I won't. Mm-hmm. You talked about this particular wound. Was this particular person? I said, well, first of all, tell me why you thought it was that person. And they go through and explain it. I said, now answer your own question.
Right.
And they did. So I don't have to mention anybody here, but people know who they are.
Right. And they know. And a lot of people may have experienced what you experienced, right. Saw it, witnessed it, but didn't say anything on their own.
Correct.
That's why they're able to relate to it. Wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Now, since you've written the book in your week crash course.
Yes.
You got the courage to release it. It's published. It's out there. How do you feel now?
I feel I'm a lot more comfortable with the book. I'm a lot more comfortable in terms of one thing about the book that I am so appreciative of is that I have had the opportunity to speak directly to every single person that has wounded me and share exactly how they wounded me. Now, of course, they wouldn't receive it. They wouldn't acknowledge it, but I feel good about that. And one of the things when I wrote the book, I felt like there was such a tug at me that I felt like if I did not write this book and release this book and died, that I would die with regret. I really felt that way. And then I was afraid because of that feeling. And I said, Lord, is it my time up? Am I getting ready to die? I literally felt that way. And I was like, okay, I don't want to put this book out there as if that's going to stop me from dying.
Let's make you feel good.
But I really felt that tug that if I did not write and release this book, that I would die with regret. And so I feel so much more comfortable with it. I feel so much that the purpose of this book is it's being well received. When I'm on interviews such as this, and sometimes I'm real cautious because I don't want to offend anybody with my beliefs, my stance, because like I tell people, these are Dr. Monica's views, her opinions, her experiences, and nobody can negate those things, just like I can't negate theirs. And so I'm very hesitant about that because we know how strong some people's beliefs are, and they will go toe to toe. I am not trying to convert you or trying to change your opinion or vice versa. But when I had a pastor read this and have me on his show, and I was so concerned, I said, well, you know what? This is your message. This is your movement. You have to do this. And I was so floored by this pastor because he was in agreement with it. But guess what? He's not going to say some of these things that I'm saying from the pulpit because that's going to go against the business of the church.
Right.
But yet he's in agreement. So, I'm sitting here kind of baffled. Okay, well, this manipulation, the deceit, these half-truths, what's the purpose of us being in the church if we can't be true? What's the purpose of us being in church when there's more crap going on there? I'm saying it nicely. And, but you have to be cautious. And one of the things I was mentioning to someone about regrets, and this sounds kind of harsh, but I do say it because it's my feelings. And I know a lot of people who feel this way. I actually regret setting foot in a church. I grew up in a church all my life. Now, let me clarify that statement. I regret it because going in naive, going in gullible, going in trusting, going in just believing that everybody in the church are good people. They have your best interests at heart. And I'm not saying everyone in the church is not like that. However, we have to be very careful, especially when you're introducing our children into church environments. And people don't understand that. Nobody, but who's going to say that? You have to be cautious bringing your child around pastor so-and-so, deacon so-and-so, sister so-and-so, brother so-and-so. But nobody is going to say that. Mm-mm. And we have to be real. And so I was speaking on another event, and there was this 23-year-old young man. And he said, well, I'm so glad you said some of those things. He said, because we watch what you guys do and you don't live what you preach. I said, you're absolutely right. And he said he just was so glad that I was talking about these things. And he said, you get it. You get it. I need to talk to you more. I said, well, life will make you get some things. And I once you've been wounded to your core, you either are going to rise or you're going to die. I chose to rise. And whatever I needed to do to recover, so to speak, my peace, my joy, because that other stuff didn't feel good. And so whatever I have to do to get my peace back, to get my joy back. That's my focus. And that's what I encourage people to do. Yes, it may sound selfish, but you know what? If you're not at peace, if you're not happy, you can't be there for anyone and anything else. You cannot be your best. So take care of self first. And most people don't say that. You like I said, I grew up in the church. First thing you say, oh, I put God first. Well, but God made me. He gave me a brain, and he wants me to take care of myself. He's going to take care of me. So why am I going to put him first? I'm just, these are just questions that I have.
Right.
If he's made me, he's created me. So why am I going to put him first? He's here, but he's not here, so to speak. I'm here. I see this. I see me. I have to take care of of his creation, first and foremost, and allow him to do his part. That's just my take. But again, this is my take after writing this book. So I went away with more questions than ever after writing this book.
Well, you have more of the freedom I guess the mental relaxation.
Correct.
You need to ask more questions.
Correct.
Especially of how positive the book has been in general,
Correct.
how people have perceived it.
Correct.
And I think you're I would bank $100 million on it, that you're not the only one with these questions. You're just one of the few that have actually spoken out, put it down to paper, and are asking people,
Correct.
Hey, how this is. But yes, if someone's very true to their belief, then a small question turns into an argument.
Correct. And I've been on shows, and like I said, I usually tread lightly when I say certain things. I used to. I don't anymore. I just preface, these are my experiences, my views. And I'm going to say that probably every single program I have been on, everybody says their views have changed. This is, and so we've engaged in a conversation like never before.
I think there's more, not that there's more to say, but I think of your book and hearing from what you're saying is that the fact of questions need to be asked, whether it be about religion, whether it be about why do I boil water this way instead of another way, like whatever the question may be, should be asked that question. And then when you go talk about, protecting the youth, protecting the children, bringing them in, giving them and allowing them to go ahead and ask questions. What is it? When kids are like 5, it's always like, why? They're asking why for a reason.
Correct.
Because they want to know. And it's just wanting to know. It's not, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just curious. I want to know.
Correct. And one of the things that I really encourage people, trust your intuition and your gut, because they tell you a lot. I know that for me, I suppressed my gut feelings, even though I knew better. So I talk about those things. We talk about friends. I talk about, at the end of each chapter, I have words of wisdom. And one of the words of wisdom I say, when we talk about friend wounds, stop calling everybody friend. Literally, this is my friend. This is my friend. No, they're associates, acquaintances. And we cause hurt because we label everybody as friend. And so I talk about these things, or even in the family. One of the words of wisdom I mentioned in the blood is not thicker than water. We would like for it to be, but in reality, for some of us, it's not. And when you have been wounded, you have to set your boundaries. I guard my peace at all costs. And that's what I encourage people to do. Because when you're not at peace, you can't function, you can't operate. This is why people jump out of buildings, commit suicide, because they don't have an outlet. They're not at peace. And when you're not at peace, that's start playing with your psyche, your mental health. And so we have to be responsible for ourselves and step back and learn to take care of ourselves. And that's what I literally hope the book does. And it hasn't been for my readers.
So how does one find you to well, we know how to find the book, but to get you to speak, talk, share some words of wisdom, or just to sit and ask questions with, really?
You can reach me on social media. I am at Words of Wisdom by Dr. Monica on Facebook. Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. Don't forget that Y. 2022. I'm on Instagram at Wounds of Wisdom by Dr. Monica, as well as Twitter, Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. And you can also go on my website, Dr. Monica Jackson, and click the contact form and fill that out and reach out to me to speak. I do also instructional design. So I design courses and for all sorts of things. So that's a little bit about me and how to reach me.
That's nice. I love it. See, guys, everyone that knows me knows that I will ask why, where, what's going on. I ask so many questions, and it's not being rude. It's because I genuinely, I totally said it wrong, but I actually want to know. And I always encourage other people to do the same. Ask me why, ask them why, just let's find it out. I appreciate Dr. Monica's book, and I appreciate the courage she has to ask a lot of sensitive questions. That's brave. I will say that is brave. So asking why is not always a bad thing. I'm your host, Rockshana. Today's guest was Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. Be sure to tune in each week for a new episode. And remember, everything and anything goes. The sky is the limit.
Music for the Things of That Nature podcast is an original track by Jared Sacramento called Dosage.